I've been on the county council for 5 years, so it was 5 years ago that, that I was practicing law here in King County, using Superior Court on a regular basis, using the courthouse, using the regional justice facility as well. So it wasn't that long ago, but my recollection of that experience for 5 years as a corporate litigator is very clear that my experience in the court, King County Superior Court, was universally positive. From the folks who worked for the court, from the judges on down, it was a very positive experience. And so as a King County council member, I take that experience with me and appreciate the value that that court service provides for me when I was a practicing attorney, and have a keen interest, obviously, in preserving that. Judge Hillier mentioned I've had some other experience. I clerked for federal judge, worked as a public defender for a year, also spent a summer representing Yaqui Indians down in Arizona. As you might imagine, my clients or my work in those different areas gave me very different perspectives on the justice system. But each one really informed one overall appreciation for the value of the court system, the importance of the court system to a Yaqui Indian in Arizona who is economically facing very challenging situation and social pressures to large corporate clients that I was representing at Preston, Gates, and Ellis. So the public defenders, for example, are facing here in King County very significant cuts in the proposed budget that we've received from the executive branch. They obviously play a very pivotal role in our administration of justice. When I was talking to Andy just a couple weeks ago, he made a comment that I guess I knew, but I hadn't really thought of him quite this way before. And he said, hey, Bob, if you were creating a government from scratch, just from the ground up, you just were starting all over, you blew up what you had and you're starting all over, he said, hey, one of the first things, if not the first thing you would do, is create a court system. And that made sense to me. I mean, I guess it's self-evident in a way, but I never quite thought of it that way before. It is obviously a core and essential part of our system of governance. One thing that's different about our co-equal branches, executive, legislative, and judicial, in county government here is that the judicial branch does not have direct control over their budget. That goes through the process of the executive and the county council, as you know. So the judicial branch, the court system, is in a different place from that standpoint than the others. And that puts an extra burden or responsibility, I think, on folks like myself and Larry to make sure we handle that appropriately. Just the last thing I'll say, and that is, I hope we have a conversation, we have time for talking about the therapeutic court systems that we have here in King County, which are not mandatory systems necessarily, but I think are really, really critical systems that not only save taxpayer dollars and are the right thing to do, but I think are of tremendous assistance for many of the people I used to represent, for example, down in Arizona, or when I worked in a public defender's office. So I'm really acutely aware and have a keen interest in that area specifically to make sure that we maintain the funding for those programs. We heard a lot of very compelling testimony during our process this year from folks who have gone through those systems. Drug court in particular comes to mind from just yesterday. Folks who went through that system, people are cycling in and out of our jail system repeatedly, and as a result of drug court, in some example, as one example, came out the other side and are contributing members of society, have a job, stable lives, obviously saving taxpayer dollars for all of that, for all of us, as well as making our society as a whole, frankly, a more just society as well. So I think those are, and I think other members of the county council agree, the challenge is finding the dollars. And Larry mentioned Olympia as being a key aspect of that, and I think we'll get to that hopefully as well today. The proposed budget from the executive has obviously some adverse impacts, significant adverse impacts, for example, on therapeutic courts. To fund those courts, for example, or other aspects of the court system, greater than what the executive proposed requires cuts in other programs, whether that's public health, the elections department, human services, you name it. We have to find those dollars somewhere. We can't just print the money. I will say this about the process. In my third year on the leadership team, Larry's been chairing the budget committee before I was on the county council. He goes way back. And but it's my third year on the leadership team. I can tell you that this year is fundamentally different than the past 2 years in the sense that it is quite literally a line-by-line exercise through the general fund budget. And we get very excited these days when we find 50 grand or 75 grand buried in some program somewhere that we don't need anymore, or we can reprioritize for what we consider more important programs. Some of those cuts are painful cuts. I mean, just to be clear, in public health, I invite you to take a look at the public health budget, and there's proposals to close public health clinics. We have 150,000 adults in King County who lack insurance. Closing a public health clinic, as you might imagine, has tremendous impacts. How do you balance out those priorities? That's not easy. But I do believe, I'll say at least this much, that our staff has done a tremendous job at trying to find areas in the general fund where I think many members of the leadership team feel we can reprioritize and use for what we consider to be higher priorities within the budget, and that's been a big part of the exercise to find those dollars. Without finding those dollars, though, and reprioritizing, you can't do it, but I think we're making progress. Larry mentioned the authority the county council has now on 0.3% of a sales tax. That would generate about $150 million a year. To put that in some perspective, that's not council-manic. That'd be a vote of the people. 60% would go to King County, as Larry said, 40% to the cities, and it's often referred to as a criminal justice sales tax. At least one of those 0.3% must be dedicated to criminal justice. I think 4 counties, maybe around the state, have adopted some portion of that 0.3% on the sales tax. So the one thing I would add about that is, as it stands now, that must go to the people for a vote. And so it's not just going to Olympia, but at some point in the future, whatever authority Olympia gives us, it may be that needs to be a case made to the people of King County about the importance of many of these programs. We can't do that alone, obviously, but it may not just be Olympia, it may be to the larger community as well. I think members universally across King County Council, one reason I enjoy working on it so much is I think they're committed to the type of improvements you've mentioned. One example just from last year, I think it was last year, the mental health sales tax was just last year, where the council took a vote to increase the sales tax by 0.1%. We had authority from the state legislature to increase sales tax by 0.1%, $50 million a year. The dollars have to be used for mental health and chemical dependency related issues. And a big part of that will go to the goal, for example, was therapeutic courts or mental health courts to be able to expand that system. Okay, we're threatened with closing it down, which is not where we want to go, obviously, but the idea is there to expand those types of courts, or even before you get people in the criminal justice system at all, which is directly to your question, is part of that plan is to, when someone is picked up, say, in downtown Seattle for spitting on the bus and the officer realizes the person has a mental health issue, they have some discretion to go to another facility to get this person evaluated, to get them some treatment if it's a mental health situation, for example, rather than have them go through the criminal justice system. Our King County Jail is the second largest mental health institution in the state, second only to Western State Hospital. That many people who have mental health issues are in our criminal justice system, and it becomes they're not getting the treatment they need to help them when they are there or when they get out. And so that's a big part of that plan that we put together. It's a very detailed plan. If you're ever interested in it, check it out on the website. But a big portion of that is to address exactly that issue of trying to get address folks who are not going to be a threat to people, the treatment they need in the appropriate circumstances, rather than have them go through the criminal justice system. We just approved the implementation plan and funding plan. This is just, I'm losing track of time with this budget. I'm in a time warp of sorts, but this was recently just in the last month and a half. And so literally, I think you'll see, it's safely by RFPs are going out, for example, for different programs. So dollars are being invested right now. It may take a few months, obviously, to ramp it up and put those services on the ground. But the authority has been cleared through the executive and county council for the specific plan, the specific programs, and the RFP process has started. So it's a matter of months at this point before you actually see those services out there very soon.